Fight fans, welcome to the PBC Podcast, brought to you by Premier Boxing Champions with your host, Kenneth Bouhairie and Michael Rosenthal.
Welcome, everyone, to the PBC Podcast. I'm Kenneth Bouhairie.
And I'm Michael Rosenthal, editor of USA Today's Boxing Junkie.
We want to thank you guys for tuning in. It's fight week. Finally, PBC returns Saturday night with a great triple header. We'll get to that in a second. We've got Keith, one-time Thurman, joining us later in the show. And Keith has a lot to say ahead of his anticipated return Saturday, February 5th against Mario Barrios on Fox Sports pay-per-view. And in today's toe-to-toe segment, we're going to play Who is the Greater Fighter? Stay tuned to see who we pit against each other. Should be pretty fun. But let's kick things off with the PBC Fight of the Week. This Saturday, January 22nd, PBC on Showtime returns, and so does boxing's longest reigning world champion, Mr. Gary Russell Jr. Russell defends his WBC featherweight title against unbeaten hard hitter Mark Magsayo at the Borgata in Atlantic City. Action on Showtime Championship Boxing begins at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and we begin here with the essentials.
Okay, here we go once again. Russell, 31-1 with 18 knockouts. Magsayo, 23-0 with 16 knockouts. So they're a combined 54-0 with 34 knockouts. Both 5-0 in their last five. Both have 3 knockouts in those fights. Last fight for Gary Russell was Tug Nayambayar. He won a unanimous decision almost exactly 2 years ago. Magsayo, Julio Ceja, he knocked him out in a spectacular fashion in the 10th round this past August. Russell has a 56% knockout ratio, Magsayo 70%. Russell 160 rounds, Magsayo 119, Russell's 33, Magsayo 26. Russell turned pro in 2009, not long after the 2008 Olympics. Magsayo turned pro in 2013. Russell's a southpaw. Magsayo fights from an orthodox stance. Russell's listed at 5'4.5", Magsayo at 5'6". Russell's reach was listed at 64. I had my doubts about that, but that's what BoxRec has. Magsayo 68. Russell's from the Washington, D.C., Maryland area, and Magsayo is from Manila, Philippines.
Man, some pretty big size advantage, physical advantages for Magsayo there. Now, Russell is a few months shy of his 34th birthday, hasn't fought in 2 years. How big a factor will age and ring rust be for him?
2 years is a long layoff, particularly for a guy approaching his 34th birthday. At the same time, Russell strikes me as kind of a gym rat type. He's never too far away from boxing, even when he's not fighting. Is 2 years away ideal? No, it's definitely not ideal. Is it going to be a significant factor in this fight? I kind of doubt it. I think the situation with Gary Sr., Gary's dad, might be more of a factor. He's battling diabetes, and he's been in and out of the hospital. That obviously has been difficult on Gary Jr., both personally and professionally, for obvious reasons. I think he'll be okay, though. He's a pro. He knows how to prepare for a fight.
Yeah, he is indeed a pro, although that is indeed a pretty big loss. I wonder, he's been known as a guy who fights only once a year, and now it's 2 years. You can only go to the well so many times, but I mean, who knows? Gary's going to have to dig deep in this one, I suspect. That said, he faces an opponent who has never been at this level before. How good is Mark Magsayo?
I think he's good. He's quick. He does a good job setting up punches, and he hurts you when he lands them, as we saw in the Ceja fight. Again, that knockout in the 10th round was pretty spectacular. At the same time, I think he's still developing. For example, I guess, I was thinking about this as I was preparing for the podcast and writing a couple stories on Magsayo. Pretty much everybody's developing all the time, right?
Right.
But I don't think Magsayo is really even near his peak. For example, he has lulls when he doesn't, do much in fights. That's one reason he was behind on the cards against Ceja at the time of the knockout. He can't do that on the next level, meaning this fight against Russell. To his credit, though, Magsayo did make the adjustments against Ceja and finished him off. So that tells me something too.
Well, what does Magsayo need to do in order to win Saturday night?
Well, for sure, he has to stay busy. If he's not, Russell's just going to pick him apart and win going away. At the same time, he can't be wild. He's going to have to be patient in terms of his timing. Remember, good timing offsets Russell's it offsets speed in general, and we know how quick Russell's hands are. Although Magsayo's pretty quick too. I think if Magsayo stays busy, stays smart, I think he has a chance to push Russell, and who knows, maybe win the fight.
Yeah, and maybe land that shot. What about Russell? What does he need to do in order to win?
Russell just needs to be Russell. He has a big edge and experience and is the better boxer by my estimation. I envision him fighting behind his jab, landing enough power shots to win rounds, and just frustrating Magsayo, as you mentioned, has never faced anybody even remotely like this. Russell just needs to avoid falling into traps set by Magsayo because of the challenger's power is real. He has one punch knockout power. And I think Russell's going to do that. I think he's going to be careful, but he's going to be active enough to win the fight.
So is that your prediction? Are you going with Gary?
I'm going with Gary. I just don't think it's quite Magsayo's time, at least not against the guy at Russell's level. Again, I think Russell uses his skill set, his quickness, his experience to outbox Magsayo and win pretty handily. He could also hurt Magsayo. Russell's power might be a little underrated. I'm going to say he wins by a wide decision, though.
Interesting. I like Russell here, but I like him by close decision. I'm not really sure what to expect from him given the layoff, but if he's the same guy we saw 2 years ago against Bouhairie, then I expect him to win clearly. Big if, though, and if he's not, I mean, who knows what will happen. Now, we've got another 50-50 bout in the co-feature, a 140-pound rematch as Subriel Matias takes on Petros Ananyan. The two first fought in February 2020 when Ananyan won a unanimous decision. It was a pretty good fight. Matias faded badly in the second half of that bout, but Matias has stopped 2 consecutive opponents since then. Mike, what can he do to improve on his the first fight that lost?
Well, he has to be himself, first of all, an aggressive fighter, a volume puncher, but he can do it in a more responsible way than he did in the first fight. He basically just traded punches with Ananyan, punch for punch, and with basically no regard for his defense. You just don't wade in and expect to score a knockout every time out, at least against top-level guys. I would say he needs to be aggressive as he always is, but be aware of what's coming at you, and also make sure you just alluded to this. Also, make sure you preserve a little bit of energy at times. That'll come in handy late in the fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a big if asking a guy like him to be aware of what's coming back. I mean, he's going to have to avoid those punches in the rematch, but, avoiding punches isn't really his game, given that he's such a high-volume pressure fighter. How does Ananyan repeat?
Do the same thing he did in the first fight. Just keep coming, keep matching Matias's output. And I hope he's aware that he'll be facing a really hungry fighter, probably a better one than he faced in the first fight. He just needs to stay poised, stay busy, and stay disciplined.
Yeah, this might be actually a bad style matchup for Matias. That could be what this turns out to be. Yeah. Who are you picking?
I think Matias gets Ananyan this time, although he's going to have to work hard to do it, I think. As I suggested, revenge is a powerful motivating factor. I think Matias will be at his best in this fight. He may or may not outwork Ananyan, but I think he'll be the one who lands the bigger shots, which will either give him a clear decision or a late knockout. And I'm actually leaning toward the latter, even though Ananyan's a really tough guy. It'll be hard to take him out.
Yeah, I think so. I like Matias by unanimous decision. I'm playing it safe here. I think he's busier, stronger, and more determined this time, which you alluded to. He knows his opponent, and I think he's going to do enough to win on the card. It's clear the first fight was pretty close. A couple quick notes here. Featherweight contender Tuxtat Bouhairie gets a new opponent in a televised opener. Original foe Vic Pacius withdrew after contracted COVID. So Bouhairie will now face Namibia's Zachariah Lucas. Also, Mike and I are both 1-0 in the prediction league for 2022. We'll see how that goes. All right, it's time to bring in this week's guest. A former unified world welterweight champion. His road to redemption begins Saturday, February 5th, as he takes on Mario Barrios in a battle of former champions at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, live on Fox Sports pay-per-view. Keith, one-time Thurman. Keith, first things first, you've been in the gym for a while now, and I've been hearing some good things. Tell us, how are you feeling physically?
I mean, I feel great, Of course, the beginning of training camp, when you're at your heaviest, you know, you're feeling a little slow, you're feeling a little sluggish, but you keep going like the engine that could, you know, chugga, 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 chugga. You shake a few pounds off, and all of a sudden you're moving faster, you're moving better. I've been lifting my weights, I've been getting stronger. And, you know, I don't know if it's something about being 33 and 2.5 years of not feeling my body as a prime young fighter, but I just feel great right now, man. I'm really impressed with how I feel. I feel way better than I did at the start of 2019 when I fought Josecito Lopez. And I'm just looking forward to February 5th, getting back in action, showcasing my skills and talents once again to the world of boxing, reminding people who Keith Thurman is and what I bring to the table, because apparently some of these people, not everybody, but y'all must have forgot. Got me feeling like Roy Jones in the building.
We're going to touch on Roy in a second, actually. Now, you mentioned on the Last Stand podcast that you're a deadlier fighter when you strive to achieve, as in, you know, you don't have a belt now, so it's sort of different. You got a lot to prove. Is that like a mindset, and do you train differently because of it?
I mean, when you don't have something, you know, and you got to get it, how you going to get it? And if somebody can I be champion? Can I please be champion? Hey, Errol, can you mail me the belts? You know what I'm saying? This. I don't get to beg. I don't get to ask. That means you got to dig deep. You got to go, you know, you got to take it. You got to take it, you know, like a starving lion getting at the lamb that I'm eating right now, you know, for dinner. You know, you got to take it. You know, you gotta take this opportunity. When you're champion, what is there to take? You have. There's nothing to take. You know, just continue. It's a continuum of being great. Floyd Mayweather showed it in his career. Other champions have shown it in their career. I was doing my best to continuously be great. I had some great moments in the Pacquiao fight, but at the end of the day, I fell from grace. You know, I'm not a champion today. We live right here, right now. You can watch The Matrix. You can learn a lot of things about quantum physics, but there's only one time. The time is now. Now, I've been hungry. You think I've always been hungry because I love the sport of boxing. And it's not about, for me, it's about achieving a dream. Just like Martin Luther King, I had a dream that I would be seen on every single television screen, okay? I just want to be seen. I just want to be heard. I just want to be admired. I just want to be loved. Who doesn't want to be loved? You know, I love boxing. You love boxing, then you should love Keith Thurman, because I just wanted the best for the welterweight division. I want to bring the best out of myself. I want to bring the best out of my opponents. And really, I mean, you can just see by the way that I'm talking, I just want to have fun. You know, my career is not over. I'm not going to announce retirement tomorrow. I got so much more to give. I've only had one defeat, you know, and my motto hasn't changed. I said, I got to owe. I'm not afraid to let it go. If you can beat me, beat me. Well, one time's been beaten one time. Who's going to beat me 2 times? Will there ever be a 3 times? I don't know, but I'm willing to find out.
Keith, love your frame of mind. You're obviously, you recovered from your injuries. What was the key factor in your recovery? Was time the main thing?
Well, the key factor was having a good doctor. That was the key factor, you know? So shout out to Doc, amazing job. I'm loving the way my hand feels. You know, if a heavy bag could talk, he'd be cursing at you, Doc, because I'm banging it. I'm banging, you know? And it just feels good, man. It's not a good sensation to sign these fight contracts knowing that you're not 100%. You know, we've seen lots of documentaries. We've seen different kind of boxing movies. We've seen all different kind of stories, whether it was fiction or real, but it's based off of reality. Fighters go through things. All professional athletes go through things. Tiger Woods and his back injuries and all these basketball players, you know. So at the end of the day, basketball, football, baseball, tennis. When you're an athlete, you're not a regular human being. You demand more from your body than God intended from a day-to-day basis, right? Because we're competing against one another and at the highest level that the sport demands. So it's taxation and I've had some repercussions, but we've been able to recover. And I'm just looking forward to being back, being healthy. Like I said earlier, I feel better at the start of this year than I did in 2019. And I did my best to make the best out of 2019. I fell short from a great fight against Manny Pacquiao. And I'm going to do my best this year to accomplish my goals, to fight some of the best fights, to bring you guys some of the most exciting fights in the welterweight division. And I'm going to do my best to rise to the top and not fall short this year.
Keith, when things were at their worst, were any of the injuries serious enough to make you contemplate retirement? Just say, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore.
I mean, I fought Manny Pacquiao one-handed. I mean, you know, I'll fight. You can chop my hands off. I'll fight you with stubs. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how to retire. I don't know how to quit. I just don't. You know, I love boxing too much. I've only had one job in life. I've only seen one type of paycheck in life. You know, for better, for worse, it's just the life that I live. You know, I'm learning from it. You know, we're setting up our retirement slowly but surely. But it's not time to retire. You know, I got a baby on the way, so I got to think bigger picture. I won't be able to box forever, but I got plenty of more good years, you know, and that's without a doubt.
Now, your blend of speed and power was so different, so unique in this era. I mean, where it was kind of like every shot had that speed and power, you know, so to speak, even when you threw in combination. This is your first camp in a while. How do you feel your speed and power is right now?
It's interesting. So, you know, one of my sparring partners, you know, he's had some activity during COVID, you know, not tremendous big fights, but he went on a nice little knockout streak. He had some good fights for himself. And we haven't sparred since he was in camp with me for the Pacquiao fight. So the first time we got back in there sparring, he thought, you know, oh, well, you know, I'm going to show Thurman something. And then all of a sudden he was like, yo, what's with Thurman? How's this dude like this? And then somebody else looked at him and said, that's what it means to be different, bro. That boy's different, you know. At the end of the day, the way I talk about the sport is different because my whole approach to the sport is different. I can only talk about boxing so well because I know it so well. This isn't steam. This isn't smoke. This is experience. This is walking the path of a warrior. Like you said, I've been unique. And so when I got back into camp, you know, we got I'm sparring amateurs, man. I got national champions. I want to see these young boys. I want them to test me. I want them to throw them little speedy little punches, whatever they got coming, you know? And the stuff that they do and the stuff that I do is different because the way I set up is there's more cleverness to it. There's more of when I get in position, I don't hesitate, you know? And even if I load up on you, what are you going to do? Duck, roll, or embrace, you know? And the moment I got you embracing for impact, I might just hit you with that, a whoop, you know what I mean? I might just hit you with that, a whoop, you know? We see Canelo show some people, you know, I don't know how much he's done the little, the feints and the different things in the fights. He shows it a little bit, but I saw him teaching Ryan Garcia these little tricks, you know, so I get tricky. I get tricky for these boys. And then at the end of the day, when I commit, I'm very explosive and it's very dangerous. And, you know, it's hard not to embrace for impact.
Now, you've been asked about this a lot, and I saw your comments on the last stand too, ring rust. how much of that is a concern for you, and what do you to combat that, make sure that's not even an issue when you step in the ring, or is it just something you can't avoid?
Boom, training, moving. For me, the way that I'm combating ring rust right now is with motion, right? Because ring rust, let's be honest, what is ring rust? Ring rust is the lack of ability to be sharp. That's what it is. So how do you sharpen a pencil? You know what I mean? You gotta grind it out. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, if there's ring rust, and if I'm gonna grind it out, it's not gonna happen in the fight. It's not gonna happen in the next fight. It's gonna happen in the camp, you know? So I'm just doing what I can do best to get moving, to feel slick. That's why I'm in here with these amateurs, because they're young. Their bodies don't even know how to spell ring rust. They don't know none of that. You know what I'm saying? So I gotta move. I gotta be sharp. I gotta duck, dodge. I'm trying to counter them, and that's putting me to where I want to be, which hopefully February 5th, you guys are going to be able to question, like, is that ring rust? I don't know. You know, that's my goal. My goal is to minimize what people think ring rust looks like and show them that you can work it out, but you got to put in the grind ahead of time.
Makes sense. Keith, your opponent is Mario Barrios. What specific challenges does he present?
I mean, he has the challenge that I have. We're both coming off of losses, so we're going to demand greatness out of ourselves. He's going to demand more out of himself. How much more does he bring to the table this time than he did against Tank Davis? He had a great performance up until he lost. I had a great performance, but I still ended up losing. So what kind of adjustments can he make? I believe that when fighters are coming off of losses, you can't just say that, oh, they're nothing now, because they're competitive athletes. You know, if Kobe lost a game, does that mean he's nothing? What happened the next game? If Jordan lost a game, what happened the next game? You know, if Jordan only scored 25 points, next game he's scoring 45 points. You know, so losses, bottom line, piss athletes off. Okay, falling short pisses us off. You know, and it awakens that true competitor inside us to be better. So I know that he's going to have a flame and a fire burning with desire to be a better fighter, just as I feel the fire within me. And I believe that's why this is going to be a great fight come February 5th. And I'm looking forward to the challenge.
Now he's moving up from 140 pounds. Is that a significant advantage for you, do you think?
I mean, significant, no. I mean, Manny Pacquiao was a lightweight and I got beat, you know? So styles makes fights. We know this in boxing. Floyd Mayweather was never a welterweight, beat tons of welterweights. So, you know, I don't have that perspective. I don't critique weight classes in that manner. Maybe I did once upon a time. I don't do that anymore. At the end of the day, it's the style. At the end of the day, it's who gets who first. Who gets who first. And I know he's coming with it, and I just have to be physically and mentally prepared.
Keith, Dan Birmingham's been your lead trainer for a long time now. What can you tell us about your relationship with him and what he's meant to you as a trainer?
Dan, you know, he's just seen me since I was 14, 15 years old. You know, we worked so many camps together. I love the way that he works the mitts. If you go and you look at our film that's on YouTube, some of Thurman on the mitts, you know, I'm not like the Floyd Mayweathers. We're just not the kind of fighters that call out shots, you know. We don't do a regimen where we know when what combination to throw. My coach doesn't tell me he's about to throw a jab at me and he needs me to slip counter. He might do a few if he thinks I haven't thrown enough uppercuts or something. He might mention something. Hey, do a move after that. Do this after that. He might say just a little bit, but for the most part, we're free flowing fighters. If you don't really understand what I'm saying, go and watch the film and see how we do the mitts. I just flow. I go, left, right, boom, boom, boom. And then it's up to him because he was a boxer in his old days, back in Youngstown, Ohio, so coach, he's catching, bop, 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 catching, boom, 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 boom. And then whenever he feels like, he flicks at me, and those paddles, they're fast, boy. He's like, I'm 70 years old. I still got it. He's flicking at me whenever he wants to. I don't tell him, hey, coach, he throws this punch, that punch, but I'm watching him like a fighter. I train my eyes. I don't care how many times I throw punches and he doesn't throw back. I'm waiting for him to throw back. And then he'll be walking me down and I can already see in his head, oh, coach wants to hit me. Coach wants to hit me. You know what I'm saying? And I just love that play. I love that it's more organic. It feels organic. Now, not to diss anything with the Mayweather pad style, everything in boxing has its purpose. But when you're utilizing certain techniques, you need to understand the purpose of those techniques to maximize the results of utilizing that in your training protocol. So, Dan and I, we just go so far back. Everything's so organic, free flowing. He has great insight in the corner when it comes to what to do in a real fight. And I've always respected that. And I loved it.
Speaking of going far back, you had a great amateur career. I think you won like 6 national championships or something like that. Did you ever have a rival in the amateurs?
Demetrius Andrade.
Can we get some background on that?
Didn't know that.
So, me and Andrade, the first time we met, it was the nationals at the Silver Gloves, right? And it was very interesting. I dominated my bracket. And people were saying, ooh, that boy's bad. He was dominating his bracket. They were saying, ooh, that boy's bad. And then we were both so bad that both of our coaches told us the same exact thing. They said, hey, don't fight this boy, box him. And we both didn't listen. We was like, I'm the bad one. He's like, I'm the bad one. So we got the fighting, and I won the fight. And with that, not only was it one of the, it was like my second to third national title ever. And it was the biggest really of that time because there's smaller nationals and things of that nature. So the Silver Gloves, you had to qualify state regionals to get to nationals. So it was a very big accomplishment. And then I won best fighter of the tournament award because our bracket was so stacked and what we did to both of our brackets was amazing. And our fight was truly amazing. So they just announced whoever wins this fight is going to get fighter of the tournament award or some kind of award like that, or best fighter for whatever age bracket we were, 14, 15 at the time. And I remember just being there for the reward. And my boy was like, yo, they about to call your name, right? And I was like, whatever, man. I ain't never been on that status as an amateur. I was like, whatever, man. And then they really did. And I was like, wow, it's one thing to win a tournament. It's another thing to be the outstanding boxer of your age bracket at a tournament. So that was the first time. And then from then, I got a few other best fighter of the nights from that point on. That's when I slowly really realized that I was a little different. But me and Andrade, we had to meet again later on. And that one time, was the only time one time won, man. We fought 3 more times. We fought once in the Pan Am qualifier, and I know it was a close fight. I don't really agree with the judges' scorecards. I call favoritism. You know, he was dead tired in Colorado Springs. We were both huffing and puffing. But, you know, they said he outpointed me, you know, the old point system. You know, I can hit him with a devastating right hand, left hook. He can hit me with 2 jabs and we're fucking tied, you know. So that was amateur boxing back then. He was very hard to beat. He was the more skilled fighter, I have to say. I had a professional style. I was always trying to hurt people. He had better rat-a-tat-tat combinations. And eventually, we all know who Andrade is and what Boo Boo's done. And we know how tall the boy is. He had that growth spurt on me, and he was hard to beat. Talented, southpaw, very hard to beat. I fought him in the Olympic trials and the finals. For the first bracket of the finals, he won. I had to go to the losers bracket. I won the losers bracket, had to fight him in the finals of the finals, and I lost again by a few points. But he had my number in the amateurs. We back. He had my number in the amateurs. So he got me, you know, I got 1 out of 4. He got 3 out of 4. It is what it is. But I love seeing what he's done as a professional. We talked in New York years ago. It hasn't been a long time since I've seen Boo Boo, but we got nothing but love and respect. And I'll tell you this, the last time I fought Boo Boo at the Olympic trials, when I walked out of the ring, I promised myself I'll never fight that man for less than $100,000. You know, I said, I don't care. I'm never fighting that boy again for less than $100,000. And then we both end up 7-figure fighters, and we've had very blessed careers. You know, he's had his own struggles and his ups and downs. I've had my own struggles with my injuries and my ups and downs. But at the end of the day, you know, I admire everybody that I've ever seen from the amateurs that's made it to this championship level, because we walk that real path. You know, we're living the dream that we always set out to live. And for me, there's just nothing better than that. And that's why I'm very happy to be returning February 5th, because the story's not over. The dream has continued. It's still in progress. And it's just beautiful to live this fight life, this fighter life. So many people want it from all walks of life when it comes to sports. Great college athletes who never get it to the major leagues, you know, people who sacrifice their childhood, you know, striving for greatness that falls short early on. And we're just very blessed, man. So I love the man. I love the experience that he's given me. And to this day, you know, I mean, some of the fights like that in the amateurs were still harder than some of these professional 12-round fights, you know. But, you know, luckily, you know, these 12-round fights are hard in their own respect. But the skills that he had, you know, it was definitely made some of these world-class fights that I've had to face a lot easier.
One more thing about the amateurs. Are there any amateurs you lost to who you could actually fight in the pros, or you'd like to fight in the pros?
No, most of the amateurs that I lost to, because the amateurs, you know, you're going to see them at another tournament. So most of the people that I lost to, I also have victories over. So yeah, I don't think that there's really a name. Yeah, I got my get back before we ever turned pro. I got most of my get backs. The only one who got me in the end was Boo Boo. He was the only one that he got his get back, because I got him first. So he made sure he got me last.
Love that story. We mentioned Roy Jones Jr. earlier. You may have heard this before, but there's parts of your style that are reminiscent of Roy's. Is that a Florida thing? Is he somebody you studied, or is it just a coincidence?
Oh, it's a coincidence. I remember the first time I was at a PAL Nationals in Virginia Beach. It was the first time I ever saw Roy Jones Jr. fight on TV. I think he fought Tito Trinidad. And I'm watching the fight, and I'm with the heavyweight who happened to be the brother of Jeff Left Hook Lacey. His name is Kenny Lacey. He was being trained by Ben Getty alongside with me and a few other people at the tournament at that time. And I'm watching the fight with Kenny, and I said, yo, Kenny, why has this dude got his hands down? And he said, boy, that's Roy Jones Jr. I said, okay, yeah, Roy Jones Jr. I know him. He's like, well, then you know him. And I said, well, I know him, but I ain't never seen him fight. And he said, bro, that's how Roy fight. I said, that's how he fight? I said, he don't put his hands up? Because Ben Getty always used to yell at me, put your hands up, boy. Put your hands up, boy, you know? And I was always being yelled at to put my hands up. So watching Roy do that to Tito Trinidad, you know, I just thought, like, is that really the smartest decision? Is that really, you know, how he boxed? But then, of course, eventually seeing more of who Roy is, watching his highlights early on in his career, his charisma, his hand speed, his power, you know, not too many people can get away with it. So I like to use Roy as an example for amateurs. I say, look, man, Ben Getty kept boxing simple. He said, you don't want to get hit, you keep your hands up. But if you think you want to be this guy right here and you want to have your hands all below your chin and all that, that's cool. But you better be like Roy Jones Jr. and move your head. You know what I'm saying? So if your hands are down, you better move your head. And if you don't want to move your head, then you better put your hands up. And that's how I approach boxing, and that's how I teach young fighters.
Keith, the welterweight landscapes, it's a little different now from the last time you were on the main stage, and it seems like today fighters speak about Keith Thurman like he's food, like he's just a name, and that wasn't the case before. Do you feel people have forgotten who One Time is, and is that motivating for you?
I think, you know, I acknowledge that I've fallen from grace. Keith One Time Thurman is not the undefeated welterweight champion of the world. But that don't mean Keith Thurman ain't a, look, I'm a bad mamma jamma. I've been bad since the B met the A. You know what I'm saying? I've been bad, met the D. I've just been bad. Okay, forever and ever. Okay, I'm like dynamite. Okay, it's explosive. You just can't really escape it. You know, look, I've been saying, if you ask me, I'm undefeated. I've been beaten. I took an L, but who's defeated Keith Thurman? Who's taken my heart out my chest? Who's destroyed my spirit? Who's wrecked my soul? Ain't nobody done that. Ain't nobody. And ain't nobody will. Can't nobody do it, you know? Because the spirit in me lives on forever, ever. The spirit in me, the warrior in me, it'll be in this lifetime. It'll be in the next lifetime, and the life after that, okay? I was born for this. I was raised for this. I love this. You know what I'm saying? Who said I gotta, I'm not afraid to let it go. I don't care. My mama used to beat me. My daddy used to beat me. Can you beat me? Can you beat me? It's just boxing, baby. It ain't nothing new. What did I say before? What was I saying in my trash talking with Pacquiao? It ain't nothing but another black eye, baby. Fight Club. Fight Club. I walk around Walmart with a black eye, boy. Meet me at Publix with my black eye, boy. Look at me sideways with my black eye, boy. I'm gonna eat my dinner. I'm gonna go out to eat down on the strip. I'm gonna be at a 5-star restaurant with my black eye, boy. Why? Because I'm a fighter, man. That's what fighters do. It's different. It's what we do. So no matter what's happening, Just believe, you know, I'm never scared of you. I'm not scared of you or you or you. Like Oprah said, everybody can get Keith Thurman. You can get Keith Thurman. You can get Keith Thurman. You can get Keith Thurman. I love this game. I love this sport. Nothing beats my heart better. Nothing fulfills my spirit more. There's so many great things in life. There's so many blessings. I have a baby girl, just watching her smile, watching her crawl, watching her fall and pick herself back up. If my baby can do it, I can do it. If my baby can do it, I can do it. It's okay to fall. It's life. Pick yourself back up. You might fall again. That's life. Pick yourself back up. Come on, man. It's 2022. There is nothing new. It's just boxing. It's just another black eye.
Now, you got Barrios February 5th, pay-per-view. I know you've got a plan in the back of your mind somewhere. What can you share? Is it to win this fight and then gun for a world title, or do you have, something else in mind?
Of course. What did I do in 19? I had a comeback fight, and then I fought a legend. Every time Keith Thurman gets in the ring, it's how soon can we make the most exciting fights happen? We got to get the ball rolling. That's February 5th. We got a really good challenger in front of us. That's February 5th. What comes next? We get past this. We're not going to just do another February 5th. We got to go to the next date. And that next date is going to elevate, just like I did in 2019. Jose Cito Lopez, then a legend. It's Mario Barrios, and then champions. That's it. I need belts. I want the belt. I want something back. I want one here, one here. My shoulders are saying, we feeling light, bro. We feeling light out here, And at the end of the day, man, I just want to do what I do best, which is bring some of the most exciting fights into the welterweight division. And I don't know, there's great fighters out there. You guys might have been satisfied without seeing Keith Thurman, but I'm going to remind you what I do February 5th and why you should always be excited when there's a return of Keith one-time Thurman, regardless of if I'm champion, former champion, no matter how many times I fall, because I will rise back up to entertain you. I will rise back up to challenge myself. I will rise back up until the day is all over. And at 33 years old, we're not even getting started about talking about retirement. We got plenty of firefight left in us.
All right, a couple more questions, Keith. I know you want a big name should you get past Mario Barrios. If you had to choose one fighter that Keith Thurman has his eyes on, that he's got the target on, who would it be?
Well, let's just go back in time, right? What was the agenda once upon a time, right? The agenda once upon a time was to beat Manny Pacquiao and then unify the belts with Errol Spence Jr. Period. Point blank, period. So what has happened since then? I let Pacquiao run away with my belt. Spence had a hiccup, which let Ugas step in line, do his performance, grab the belt. Now Spence is going to grab the belt. But nobody should have their hands on that belt if Keith Thurman didn't take an L. This is all happening because I fell from grace. None of this would have manifested. None of this would have manifested in the world of boxing. Keith Thurman would have been the only guy you guys could have been talking about. So that's why it's funny when you guys act like I'm not the one you should be talking about. Come on, man. So that's just a small bloop, bloop, pre-COVID history lesson. And that's why we're trying to get back in the mix and re-manifest these dreams, these goals and admirations that we already have. It's nothing new. I already told you, 2022 is nothing new. All right? It's nothing new. It's just boxing, baby. And this boy right here brings the best out of everybody.
Okay, speaking of Spence and Ugas, they're rumored to be fighting each other next. What are your thoughts on that fight? Who do you think wins? You sort of just hinted at it, but I wanted to see you elaborate.
So, you know, due to overall experience, resumes, the way we jot things down with pencils, Ugas, pros, cons, Spence, you know, we want to lean towards the Errol Spence side. But styles makes fights. Ugas is one of the biggest welterweights in the welterweight division. He's got, and then the real thing about Ugas is he might not be the most exciting fighter, but at the end of the day, he's a Cuban. He's Cubano. And boxing people know them Cubans, they need to be respected. The Cubans, they know a thing or two about boxing, man. You know? They know a thing or two about boxing, man. Okay? So it's a fight that you can't just say you're going to walk through Ugas. You know, we want to say, there's people that are going to want to say, man down, you know, but at the end of the day, Ugas, he can just give you a fight that you might not like. He's going to challenge you in ways. He gave Porter a really good fight, one that some people thought that he really won. You know, I thought he fought too much like a Cuban. He was too much in the middle of the ring. He took the pressure off of Porter. He needed to step forward like his Mexican brethren, and he should have took the champion out on that day so that we would have known who Ugas was on that day. But, you know, God has blessed him with another opportunity, opened up a door, handed him Manny Pacquiao at 42 years old, 2 years after Keith Thurman put hands on him. And, you know, it just was what it was. He got to showcase his skills and his talent against a legendary fighter, be victorious, but now he's got young dogs to fight once again. And can he win? I like the matchup. I'll give it a 60-40. I almost want to give it a little closer than that, but we can only go off of what we've seen in the past, you know? So, you know, and Spence, what is Spence like? What is Spence like? Man, I say 60-40, but, you know, it might be closer to 50-50, you know, because Errol Spence against Danny Garcia was not the best Errol Spence we ever seen. You know, how good a shape was he going to be for that Pacquiao fight? How is he going to be able to recover just going into a camp, not fighting, coming into another camp? You know, it's up to him. It's up to both fighters to demonstrate their greatness. It's up to every fighter to demonstrate their greatness. Like Muhammad Ali said, I'm going to show you how great I am. That should be a motto. It should be the mantra. It should be the mantra in the heart of all boxers.
Okay, getting back to you for the last question, Keith. February 5th, how do you envision the fight with Barrios playing out?
You know, for right now, the way I see it is Barrios is going to do his best to make a statement, showcase his skills and talent, do his best to frustrate Keith Thurman, dominate Keith Thurman. And I'm going to come in and let him know that it doesn't matter how long I've been out of the ring, but you picked the wrong fight tonight. You know, I want to go in. I want to make a statement. I don't want to leave it up to the judges. I want to stop them. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be in there I'm going to be looking. I'm going to be throwing. We're going to be going toe for toe, blow for blow. I want to challenge him, see how much gusto the boy really has, and just make an exciting fight like I've done many times in the past, and remind the world what I bring to the welterweight division. Explosiveness, great ring, IQ, technique, movement, and then a few haymakers. You know, we got to drop the bombs. We got to come drop the bombs. You know, I got to hit him the way I wish I hit Pacquiao. I gotta let it go. I gotta let it go. I gotta take a risk. It does. I've already been beaten once. So what am I holding on to? What am I protecting? My legacy is solidified. I was the undefeated unified champion of the world. They already have my uniform in the Hall of Fame. I'm already there. It's already happened. But that doesn't mean that the story's over. So all we're doing is hitting a new chapter in the fight career of Keith one-time Thurman. That new chapter with this comeback, 2.5-year layoff, reminding people how great I am.
Keith, you reminded us how much of a blast it is to talk to you. Your energy is amazing. We really appreciate it. Best of luck in this fight, and we look forward to many, many more.
Thank you for all the love and support, man.
Saturday, February 5th. Superstar Keith Thurman is back.
Here comes Thurman.
And he's going toe-to-toe with former champion Mario Barrios. This will fly.
Putting it all on the line. What a fight!
Then get ready for the return of Leo Santa Cruz.
The time has come.
As he faces Keenan Carbajal. It will be a night to remember. Live on pay-per-view. Buy now on the Fox Sports app and watch on any screen you want.
All right, it's time for Mike and I to go toe-to-toe. This week's question is, who is the greater fighter? We pose this question to 3 matchups as we examine their resumes and skills and determine who is the greater fighter. Our first comparison is between 2 titans of the sport, Floyd Mayweather and Roy Jones Jr. Mike, who is your pick?
Well, it depends on how you define greatest fighter. I think for me, it's actually sort of clear. Excuse me. Mayweather, first of all, they're both just all-time greats. We need to throw that out first. Kind of what you said. I think Titans is a good word. Mayweather has a better resume. He was great for much, much longer than Jones was, but I think at their very best, at their peaks, I think Jones was a tick better, at least as good as Mayweather, but I think a tick better.
I like that pick. I mean, Roy Jones was my favorite fighter of all time. I should say. Apologies to Azuma Nelson. He won titles at 160, 168. He was undisputed at 175 and made 11 defenses there. Plus, moved up to heavyweight, beat a top 5 guy in John Ruiz. I mean, you can say it was a paper title, but forget the title. He legit beat a top 5 guy at heavyweight. And we know he beat 2 legends in Bernard Hopkins and James Toney. And I think the rest of his resume is pretty underrated too. Sugar Boy Malinga, Clinton Woods, Montel Griffin, Reggie Johnson, Thomas Tate. I mean, the list goes on. Plus, like you, I used to wonder, who in the world could beat a prime Roy Jones Jr. pound for pound? But if there's one person who might be able to beat him, one person who has every tool in his arsenal, it's Floyd Mayweather. We talk about underrated, and this man I think is still underrated. More than half of his career fights were world title bouts. He had 50 fights, 26 of them were world title bouts. That's I think crazy. You can guess what his record was in those 26 fights. I mean, he decisively beat 7 Hall of Famers, a few legends, and there are probably several more guys on his resume who should be in the Hall of Fame that aren't. Not to mention he was 12-0 against former or current lineal champions. I could go down the list of names that he beat, but it's like a who's who of great fighters of the past generation. And when you talk about skill, well, I think he had every single one in his arsenal. Was he as explosive as Jones, as powerful? Probably not, but the prime version of Floyd Mayweather was, I don't know, an extremely great fighter. I mean, he was a Hall of Famer. Pretty Boy Floyd was a Hall of Famer before he became Money Mayweather, and that guy was incredible. I mean, I think that although he may not have had as much speed and power as Roy, he definitely had a better jab, was better schooled, and was pretty fast himself and pretty powerful too. So, for me, as always, it comes down to resume, who you beat, because how else can you tell how good a fighter truly is? And when it comes to resume, Floyd Mayweather rules, and that's why he's my choice here.
Yeah, I everything you said is right on the money. It's sort of what I said too, is that Floyd has a better resume. I mean, what he did for as long as he did, like you said, he was a really great fighter when he was Pretty Boy Floyd. He was a really great fighter in his last fight.
Right.
So he was just a really great fighter across the board. And Jones had a good resume too, but just not as good as we can't do what you did with Floyd. You can just go on and on and on of the things that he accomplished. But when Jones was in his prime, like I think the thing I think about when I think of Floyd is he could do everything like you said, but I think of defense. That's the one thing that jumps out at me. He's arguably the best defensive fighter of all time. But Roy at his best was like untouchable.
Unhittable.
Yeah, and it was less about technique, as you sort of alluded to, and more about just his crazy quickness and crazy athleticism. I think Mayweather was plenty quick, by the way. If he wasn't as quick as Jones, he was almost as quick.
Exactly.
Yeah. But Jones was untouchable also. So as far as defense goes, I think it's almost a push. I mean, at least when Jones was in his prime, because as we saw, when Jones got a little bit older and he got a little bit slower, that all kind of went away because he relied so much on his speed and athleticism. When he lost just a tiny little step, you could really see that. But man, when he was at his best, he was incredible. And then the power, to me, is really what the difference is. I think that Mayweather had decent power in the lower divisions, but Jones could just crack. He could just take you out at any moment, at any time. That's like a guy like Jaron Ennis reminds me of that. He's got crazy speed, crazy athleticism. He could take you out at any second. That was Roy every fight, and that's why it was just one of many reasons it was so much fun to watch him. Amazing fighter, but obviously you could say that about both guys.
Yeah, both amazing, and I do think Jones's resume actually is underappreciated in my opinion. I just it's just hard to beat Floyd Mayweather when it comes to comparing resumes, given what he's accomplished. You just open a box rec and you look at the list of names and it's staggering. But let's move on to our next battle of who is the greater fighter. And here we've got Mikey Garcia versus Vasiliy Lomachenko. Mike, go for it.
Well, I want to say that it's pretty obvious to me, but it maybe it shouldn't be. I'm definitely go with Lomachenko. But I have a ton of respect for Mikey Garcia. They're really different styles. Mikey is like this incredible polished technician. He's one of the most polished boxers, I think, in the sport. Really tight technique, really straight punches. Really, really good boxer and tons of power, especially at the lower weight. So it's hard to pick against him. I just think that Lomachenko is a little quicker, a little more athletic, more dynamic. I mean, his footwork is just absolutely off the charts. That's what I think of when I think of Lomachenko, is his feet put him in the right place at all times. And that could mean both to land punches and to avoid punches. I don't want to sell Mikey short on footwork either, because you don't land punches like at the rate that he lands if your feet aren't in the right place. Also has really good footwork. I just think of Lomachenko as just a more dynamic guy. Lomachenko is just it's like almost watching a combination of kind of boxing and ballet. There were times I felt that way about Mayweather too. And I don't think of Mikey that way. I think Mikey more of a kind of like a blue collar guy, but also a great fighter. Another situation where I think both these guys are really, really good fighters.
Yeah, both. I agree with you. I think both are. I think Lomachenko is flashier. I'm suspect that, again, similar opposition, they get hit the same. I don't think Lomachenko's a defensive wizard, but he's certainly flashier. He does have better footwork, in my opinion. There's no question Lomachenko's a great fighter. He's got the impressive victory over Gary Russell Jr. and some decent wins. Nicholas Walters, Linares, Jose Pedraza, and Richard Comey. And he's done this through 3 divisions. However, Mikey Garcia has done this in 4 divisions, and he started his career at featherweight 2. He also actually has a nice win in a 5th division when he beat Jesse Vargas at welterweight. Now, Jesse Vargas, the top welterweight in the
Good
world?
welterweight.
No, but he was a good welterweight.
Mhm.
I mean, can you imagine Lomachenko competing at welterweight at that level? Yeah, I laugh too. I mean, I don't think so. And I mean, or could you imagine Lomachenko dropping and beating up Sergey Lipinets? Maybe like his craziest fans might, but you look at how he fought against Teofimo Lopez the first 6 rounds, and I think most even those fans will come to their senses.
I'll never be able to explain that. It was very weird.
He was, I mean, it's clear as day why he can say he was injured, but no one goes into a fight injured and then miraculously gets healed in round 7. I mean, I think that he did not.
Well, he said I hear what you're saying, and there's probably some validity to that. But I think what he was saying is he was trying to protect the fight, the injury early in the fight, and then realized I better start fighting. Otherwise I'm going to lose here. But I think maybe it's a combination of a lot.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, that's sort of what him and his camp have said. Yeah,
they were protecting the injury early.
Something
realized
like
they were down like 6-0.
No, it was weird. It was one of the weirdest things I've seen at that level of boxing.
Not being forthcoming, but
why would he be able to turn it on if he was taking?
I think it took him some. Took the ring IQ master some time to figure.
To figure him out. I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying.
To figure him out, and maybe he saw that Teofimo, who probably never gone 12 rounds before, and saw Teofimo slowing down a bit. And that's when, he picked it up. But a strong Teofimo with a good game plan, he just could do very little again. So, again, I can't see Lomachenko beating Jesse Vargas at welter. I can't see him beating Sergey Lipinets. Look, Mikey has other nice wins. He beat an undefeated champion in Dejan Zlakanin. He beat Adrian Broner when Broner was still AB. He beat an undefeated champion in Robert Easter Jr. I think his first world title at featherweight was against Orlando Salido, who, just happens to be the guy that beat Lomachenko. Lomachenko is a very good fighter. But in my opinion, when you get past the flash and also the fact that he won a title so early, which was part of the hype, you look at it, you just look at their resumes, you look at their styles in the ring, I think it becomes apparent that Mikey Garcia is the greater fighter.
Yeah, we won't agree on that. But I don't want that to be seen as some sort of criticism of Mikey. I think so. Future Hall of Famer. I think he's a really special fighter. Great guy too. I just think that Lomachenko is real. The loss to Salido was in his second fight. Salido was like this wily veteran who fought an incredibly dirty
fight.
I don't think that he was ready for that style of fight. And I think
Why wasn't he ready?
This is his second pro fight, and he'd been fighting in an amateur style for so many years. And suddenly you get this really smart but really dirty
How
fighter.
is he privileged enough to fight for a world title?
Well, that's a whole different
second pro fight.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he deserved to get the shot. I'm saying, well, he did.
Do you think he deserved, after losing in his second pro fight, that he deserved to get a title shot in his third pro fight?
Yeah, I don't. You know what? This is a different conversation. We could.
No, it's not different. I guess it gets to my point. What I'm saying is that Lomachenko has been, he's gotten special treatment, and it's almost bizarre the way he gets praised for doing things that other fighters do. That
nobody does what he does.
What does he do?
I'm talking about the eye test.
He's a 3-division champion. We have several in the sport today.
This will go back to our
Mike Garcia's a 4th division champion who competed in the 5th division.
Right, but I like the fact that he's competed and been competitive in so many divisions. But you know how I feel about titles. They don't mean that much to me anyway.
Well, then, who did Lomachenko beat for his titles? We got Gary Russell and who else?
You know what? I'm not good at this stuff. I'd have to go look at his record. But I'm with Lomachenko. He's beaten some good guys. But I'm looking at the eye test too. That's important to me. And when I'm compiling,
he's very flashy. Yes,
it's not just flashy. I mean, what he's doing is incredible. I mean, he makes guys look foolish.
What guys?
Almost everybody's
fought. He's 16-2, so it's not like he's got this long resume of guys he's made look foolish.
If he had taken a normal course, if he would have gone,
he lost to Teofimo Lopez.
Right. If he would have taken the normal course, he'd be 36-2 because he would have built up
Depends
with four and 6 round fights like a normal person, right? So you got to give the guy some credit is that he jumped into the pros and took on top guys right from the get-go. I could also turn that around and say you have to admire the guy's willingness to do that, because that's not easy to do, to go from the amateurs to that level.
I admire that, but I guess my point is that I feel like fair is fair. He demanded a world title shot in his first fight. Actually, they gave it to him in his second. He lost. He managed to get it in his third. But I think that we can't just poo-poo the Salido loss and say, oh, that was because it was his second fight. Hold on one second.
Yeah.
Hold on one second. We say, oh, it was his second fight, and that's so you can't really look at that. But then again, we're praising him for winning a title in his third fight. Oh my goodness, who could do such a thing? It was his third fight. Look, the reality is he did lose to Orlando Salido, a guy Mikey Garcia beat. Period.
Much later.
And much later, he beat Orlando Salido before Vasiliy Lomachenko beat Orlando Salido, though. So he beat a better Orlando Salido. He beat a better Roman Martinez, too, because he beat Martinez several years. He stopped Martinez several years before Lomachenko did.
Did I screw that up? Did he beat Salido before Salido beat Lomachenko?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We could go on. Robert Easter, Sergey Lipinets, Jesse Vargas. Yeah, but Adrian Broner.
Got you. This is.
Can you name some guys for?
But you're explaining why Mikey's has got such a wonderful resume, and why he's such a great fighter. But great, and I acknowledge that. But Lomachenko also has a solid resume for a guy with only 18 fights, if that's what his record is, 16-2. And the eye test is he kind of blows Mikey away as far as the eye test goes.
I guess my point is that. I say he's flashier, but does he get? Wasn't it Jorge Linares that put Lomachenko on his butt? Or am I mistaken? Doesn't he get hit quite a bit in each of his fights? Like he got hit in the Richard Comey fight. So is he that much better defensively? I don't think so. I think they're on par. He just has flashier footwork. He throws combinations, but Garcia is more efficient. That's a skill.
Yeah, well, that's what
Garcia exhibits pretty good defense too. So I think that when we talk about the eye test, that's why I say, from what I can see, Lomachenko's just a flashier fighter. He just looks flashier. He does a lot of things in there, a lot of cute things in there. But in terms of getting results done in the ring, I think Mikey Garcia is as good as Lomachenko and has a better resume.
Yeah, I don't know. That's like saying that Pacquiao is. Now, I'm not saying that Lomachenko's better than Pacquiao, but that's like saying that Pacquiao is a flashier fighter because of his footwork. And he was so quick, and the way he moved in and out.
He was super fast, and he was super powerful
from all angles.
He was a great counter puncher, but more importantly, Manny Pacquiao because he did that against a who's who of fighters from flyweight to welterweight.
Right, but
that's what it boils down to. If he was doing that against decent fighters, Manny Pacquiao wouldn't be Manny Pacquiao.
The reason I mentioned that is just that, to me, his footwork is reminiscent of Manny, where you kind of just dazzle by his ability to. You're not as dazzled as I am, but I'm dazzled by Lomachenko's ability to jump in and jump out.
Salido wasn't dazzled. Teofimo Lopez wasn't dazzled.
Yes, Salido, when you don't follow the rules and you win a fight, listen, a loss is a loss. I agree with you.
He lost.
But yeah, it was a really, really dirty fight. And so I'm sort of willing to qualify that loss, especially the way he bounced back. And he was. Another thing is Mikey never made.
It was a second pro fight. He was a dirty fighter. Again, what I said, the special treatment that he gets. But go on.
The special treatment would come from his promoter's willingness to give him a title fight that early, but that's because he's arguably the greatest amateur boxer of all time. So there's some benefits.
But he demanded that his promoters give him that fight early on. I'm sure, and not to mention, he was in the amateurs pretty much. God knows he had how many amateur fights? 300, 400. They had no choice but to fast track him. I guess if, I think the Gary Russell win was an impressive win. I don't think that he's done anything close to it since then. And I don't think his overall resume compares to a Mikey Garcia. And while I like the flashy stuff, it looks cool. I get it. I'm more, Pacquiao was flashier than Mayweather, but he wasn't better in the ring than Mayweather. I'm more impressed by Garcia's efficiency. I think he throws a great jab, great right hand. He's more powerful, has a better chin. He's equally as good defensively. He may not make a whole bunch of moves to do that, but he's equally as good defensively. Great ring generalship, great ring IQ. I just don't see it. I don't see the difference. It's like asking me, comparing Tim Duncan to the latest flashiest power forward. Tim Duncan still probably beats them.
Yeah, you use the word flashy like it's like there's no purpose to it. There's purpose to his method, to his madness. I mean, he moves around like that because it works. It's not as if he's doing it just to be flashy. Honestly, as far as talent goes and the eye test, for me, I guess maybe this is just conclude this. For me, it's pretty clear. But I agree with you. Mikey's number one. Mikey's a great fighter in his own right, but he's beaten more top guys. There's no question about it. So you have to decide what's more important. This goes back to our pound for pound discussion. What's more important, the resume or the eye test? And it's a balance of both, but you have to decide how much weight you give both sides. One last thing.
Lomachenko's face, you have to weigh heavily on.
Well, yeah, but that's okay.
Lomachenko
was number one pound for pound. Mikey never was.
You said the thing about flashing, there's a purpose to it. I guess my point is, Mikey, if the purpose is to set up your punches and to avoid punches, then Mikey Garcia does it as good or better.
Well, he certainly does it as close to as good, at least. I have.
So if he does it as close to as good, it has the better resume than what do you have?
Lomachenko's still a better fighter. He's a better fighter. Mikey to me is a. It's funny when I say Mikey Garcia and I say his name, I think of a really, really good fighter, but it's hard for me to use the word great.
That's because for years, the reality is for years. Let's break it down. Vasiliy Lomachenko's been on pound for pound list since he was 6-1. Other than Gary Russell Jr., can you name anyone else he fought in those first 6 fights that he beat? No. I mean, he's been put on that list, and heck, even when he loses, they just leave him on that list. I think he's on some pound for pound list right now. Mikey Garcia has never been accorded that level of respect, even though he was a unified champion in his third division at 135, even though he moved up and beat a formidable champion. Heck, when Mikey Garcia fought Errol Spence Jr., he was an undefeated 4-division champion, 35-0 with 30 knockouts. That you could barely find him on pound for pound list. So the reason why he's not looked upon as a great fighter is just because he hasn't been accorded the level of respect that he deserves. But when you actually look at the statistics, when you look at what he's accomplished, he's done more than Vasiliy Lomachenko. There's several fighters who have, but that's another conversation. But Mikey Garcia isn't given that level of respect. But in my question, he's no doubt a Hall of Famer and certainly better than Lomachenko. We shall agree to disagree on that one. We will pick that up next time I'm in LA over a beer. Let's move on to the final pairing on the list. Lennox Lewis versus Wladimir Klitschko. Go ahead.
For me, this is pretty clear, too, even though I don't think there's that much of a gap. I mean, I think that Lewis basically did everything a little bit better than Klitschko. I think he had a little better. Well, the jabs might have been pretty close, actually. You might even give that to Klitschko. I don't know. But Lewis had they're both about the same size. Lewis had a great jab. He moved well in the ring. I think one thing that about both of these guys that maybe are a little bit underappreciated or underestimated are their athleticism. They were both good athletes, both pretty quick. Both had just monstrous right hands. I think Lewis probably punched a little bit harder. I just think that Lewis did. They're both great heavyweights, both all-time great heavyweights, but I think Lewis did pretty much everything a little bit better. I think Lewis is arguably the best heavyweight since Larry Holmes was at his peak.
Yeah, you may be right. I mean, I'll start with Klitschko. I think he's criminally underrated. I mean, I think he's a top 10 all-time heavyweight. It's my opinion. I mean, the guy reigned for a decade, and he absolutely dominated his era. I also think he had a better jab than Lennox Lewis. He literally controlled fights one-handed. I mean, he would control whole fights one-handed, and he actually got knocked for that. People said he was boring because he could control a fighter with one hand. I think that's really impressive. Lennox Lewis was the king of his era as well. I think Lewis not only matches Klitschko in the skill department, he just has a significantly better resume. Beating Vitaly Klitschko is better than any win on Vladimir's dossier, period. So is beating Evander Holyfield. And let's not go through the slew of victories over guys like Ruddock, Bruno, Galata, Grant, Tua, et cetera, et cetera. Truly, I feel Klitschko didn't have the kind of opposition that could have elevated him over Lewis, unless he fought his brother, which we know that wasn't going to happen.
Right.
That didn't, and here we are. I think Lewis is simply the greater fighter.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame with Klitschko. I don't know if he's really, in the end, if he's underrated. I think people recognize that he was the dominant guy of an entire generation, which is something, although I still think that Vasiliy would have beat him, but that's a different conversation. I just think he was a tougher guy. But Wladimir, I think that the sad thing about Vladimir's career is what you alluded to, is that he just didn't have the opposition. It just wasn't there. It just wasn't there. They both had these weird losses, by the way. Vladimir's were just really bizarre early in his career, and Lewis had those 2 losses. But Lewis actually beat every guy he ever fought.
Right.
Because he won rematches against both of the guys who beat him. But yeah, I wish that Klitschko would have had 1 or 2, top guys to sort of see how good he would have been. What's interesting is that Emmanuel Stewart worked with both of them. And they both fought in a similar way, so you got to think there's some sort of connection here. I think Emmanuel once said that Klitschko had the biggest right hand he ever saw, but I'm not sure he hit any harder than Lewis did.
Yeah, he had a monster right hand. He just barely threw it. It felt like, I mean, I was there when he put was it Calvin Brock, I believe was his name, to sleep, and that was a vicious KO. But then I look at other times, like when he fought David Haye, and he was actually aggressive in that fight. I was very impressed with his performance against David Haye, but he didn't. He wasn't able to stop Haye, which I was disappointed in.
But Haye I was there, believe it or not. It was in
I
Germany.
think I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, and David Haye. I mean, yeah, you're right. He should always try to stop him, but I don't think Haye really wanted to fight him.
No, he wasn't really engaging.
Yeah, I think he's like, holy crap, this guy's gonna kill me.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, he let his hands go in the 12th round. But then again, Klitschko, I should say, he always fought like he had a fear of getting knocked out too. But
I don't blame him after what happened to him earlier in his career. But he sure was in a nice groove, though, wasn't he? I mean, he went like a decade without pretty much being untouchable until Fury outpointed him.
Yeah, and you know what? I tell you what, the when he fought Samuel Peter, to me that is one of the most underrated and impressive victories by a heavyweight, because watching that fight you could see him facing his demons, coming off those KO losses, and the way he beat Peter, who dropped him I think 3 times. Yeah. And I think he absolutely ruined Peter. He landed some shots on him in the 12th round. I think that Peter was not the same after those shots, and that was really impressive. I feel like he needed to get over that hump to sort of become the dominant champion that he became. And also we talk about, him fighting sort of fearfully, because he did. But then again, in that loss to Anthony Joshua, he laid it all on the line.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Yeah, and I wonder if maybe he wasn't coming off the layoff that he was coming off. Could he and would he have beaten Joshua? Who knows?
That's a really good point, because there was no fear in him that night. I think he's like, this is my last fight. I'm just going to go out on my shield. He never really fought like that, except for in that fight, which I think is an interesting perspective. Couple more things about Lewis. One, Lewis knew when to get out also, which I think is really smart, because he had a lot of trouble against Vasiliy in that fight. And
yeah.
I was at that fight too, coincidentally. And he's like, okay, that's it. This guy.
Yeah, time to go.
Too much trouble.
Right.
I'm out of here now. And also Lennox is like one of the best light guys in the sport, which isn't lost on me either. He's such a great guy. He
is a great guy and a great champion. Another top 10 heavyweight, 2 top 10 heavyweights to close out this week's show. We want to thank, of course, Keith Thurman for dropping in and giving us, such great insight, such great conversation. And we want to thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget, Saturday night, Gary Russell versus Mark Magsayo. Showtime Championship boxing action begins at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. You don't want to miss that, and you don't want to miss the next episode of the PBC Podcast.